What's the good word, y'all? DKB here. So let's talk contract updates, right? We have Quinnen Williams coming up. We did get the news a day or two ago that Bryce Huff finally signed his second round tender, I believe it was. So he's going to be playing on a $4.3 million deal. But Quinnen Williams is definitely the big ticket item that's left on our to-do list, minus the Aaron Rodgers trade. So what's the holdup? Kind of what are the most recent projections? And I think the fact that Quinnen Williams has somewhat of a super agent in his back pocket right now may work in the favor of both sides for the New York Jets and the player in and of itself. So he's represented by Nicole Lynn. If the name sounds familiar, she just finished brokering that crazy $255 million contract by Jalen Hurts, which I believe averages him $51 million a year, which makes him tops in the league, even over Aaron Rodgers at the moment. And it's definitely well deserved with the outing we just seen with him in the Super Bowl, where minus the fumble, I believe it was, that he had, he's looking at essentially a perfect game and probably a Super Bowl win. So great news for her, great news for him. And Nicole Lynn has kind of had this track record of taking guys, Jalen Hurts in the second round, Quinnen Williams a first round pick, third overall. But people that have maybe underwhelmed a little bit or maybe haven't been, top tier in terms of physically performing at their position, and it's almost like over time you see them essentially rise to the upper ranks. Jalen Hurts and Quinnen Williams being the prime examples of I guess Nicole Lynn's tutelage, if you will. I don't know in this day and age kind of what all consists of being an agent for a player, but just from like old Madden games, just from movies and stuff alone, it definitely, outside of the contracts, reminds me a lot of when you hear them having to surround the player with, tutors, if you will, trainers, finding out where the best places, to practice and or train, etc., study are going to be. And so she's definitely at the top of her game if Jalen Hurts' contract is anything to kind of snuff out. So when we take a look at kind of the most recent projections for Quinnen Williams, keep in mind, I won't say he's had a lackluster career up until this last season, but nobody really felt like he's performed up to the the third overall pick in that draft class. And so seeing the way he had this meteoric rise this season, definitely shades of his career at Alabama. Things have finally clicked. Having Robert Saleh, Jeff Ulbrich there have definitely seemed to do great things for him. And so I thought we were looking at something closer to Jeffrey Simmons' contract, but Gary Davenport of Bleacher Report put out a 5-year deal for $130 million, $77.5 million of that guaranteed. That would pay him $26 million a year over the course of those 5 years. And for comparison's sake, Jeffrey Simmons is on a contract that fully guaranteed him $66 million. So you're talking about quite a bit of a gap in terms of the overall contract number, and then of course the total guarantees that Quinnen Williams could get. And of course, this is a projection. It's going to be a little bit different as well, because you're talking about Jeffrey Simmons and some of the other guys, Javon Hargrave and them, getting 4-year deals, where in this case, this is something I talked about before, a 5-year deal, I think, for a guy like Quinnen Williams, which should put him at about 30 or 31 if he plays out that full contract. I think it's the best route to go, especially if we're going to end up taking on and assuming Aaron Rodgers' contract and everything else that we're going to have to deal with later on with some of the contracts we restructured, and then CJ Mosley's huge cap numbers that are going to come down the line later on. But overall, this is going to officially make Quinnen Williams, if he hits anywhere near this stratosphere of a contract, he's going to have the second highest, contract in terms of the total amount and the guarantees and all that, just behind Aaron Donald. Again, eclipsing guys like Jeffrey Simmons, eclipsing Javon Hargrave. The holdup that I've heard And it seems pretty realistic. Could just be some of the other players that are still out there that may be looking for a contract. Think Dexter Lawrence of the Giants. Think Christian Wilkins of the Miami Dolphins, for example. I don't know if it matters so much in the grand scheme of things, but essentially the school of thought is that you want them to go ahead and sign their numbers, see if there's anything that kind of shifts maybe the final contract negotiations to, secure Quinnen Williams as that number 2 contract and not necessarily get him outdone immediately once that gets signed. But this would be a major deal for us. Not only would it be another huge cap, feather in the cap of Nicole Lynn, and what she's been able to do so far, also representing some top talents that are coming out of this draft as well. But this would be the biggest contract that we've given out since CJ Mosley, and the first one that we've given to a first-round pick that we've been able to grow and develop since Muhammad Wilkerson. So I'm super excited for it. I'm hoping the news drops maybe not too long after the draft takes place, if the Aaron Rodgers trade and all that stuff happens to occur on day 1, day 2, because I really do believe that's where a lot of the focus for Joe Douglas is going to be. Aaron Rodgers and the draft. Of course, the last thing that we heard from him was that he felt he was in a good place with Nicole Lynn and Quinnen Williams in terms of the contract. We all would have loved to see it get done while this voluntary portion of our offseason is beginning, just to have them in the building and not have any, worrying thoughts in the back of our minds. But overall, contract numbers and all that stuff aside, I really don't care if they even gave him a $200 million contract. I think we are looking at probably the most dominant defensive tackle since Aaron Rodgers legitimately. I mean, even on the Green Bean show that I was able to catch, for the Thursday thick of it with my boy Gunny on there. Not Aaron, but Quinnen Williams changes the entire complexity of our defense. I mean, we saw not only the run game, but the pass rush, fall off a cliff. You can even argue the same thing when he's been taken out of rotation for a little bit, but we did have Sheldon Rankins to kind of offset things a little bit to a degree. But we are going to be restacking the offensive and defensive lines, if nothing else. I'm sure it won't be too much of an issue. But again, let me know what your guys' thoughts are. Quinnen Williams and the contract, $26 million per year overall, but a $130 million contract for 5 years. I'm game for it. Looking forward to what you guys got to say, and I'll catch you again. Peace.